Hello, everyone. Welcome back. For once, we're actually talking about an episode of Doctor Who. Yay!
We did it.
Yay! 2 weeks before a new episode comes out, we've decided we're going to continue looking at the old ones. And it's probably not even one that will pick up in the sort of in the trending bits either, because there's nothing really linking it to the 60th. So
Daleks, maybe.
Daleks are in the news at the minute, so maybe they'll pick up.
Maybe.
But yes, if you've missed it, which you might have to be fair because it's been a while since we've done one of these, we normally re-review episodes of Doctor Who that we have already seen. But sometimes it's been a while since we've seen them, so we're looking at them with fresh perspectives. Sometimes 10 years down the line. I think this one's 9 years down the line at this point, coming up to 10 years down the line. So. It has been a while since this one aired. We've watched all of David Tennant, we watched all of Chris Frampton, we watched all of Matt Smith. We've only watched one episode of Peter Capaldi.
Yeah. And
now we're finally on to the second episode of Peter Capaldi.
Yay.
Into the Dalek.
We did it.
Yay. This is obviously the second episode. Him and Jenna Coleman as Clara. That we really don't know much about this Doctor yet. It's literally his sort of first adventure, if you discount sort of his regeneration story as an adventure.
Yeah.
Which is fun fact, what BBC are doing with an unearthly child. They're calling the Daleks the first Doctor's adventure through time or something like that, to try and be like, oh, this is his first adventure, guys. This is his first adventure. So, a bit sneaky there, but it's fine. Yes, this is episode 2 of series 8. 8 is 8, isn't it? I've lost track already. This is where the numbering issue comes in for me. We're getting there. Just wait till we hit series 10 and I'll get even more confused.
Wait till we hit series 1 again.
Oh, I know, God. Yes, and this sees the Doctor sort of stumble upon a sick Dalek, I guess, is the way to put it. An ill Dalek. In the middle of a war between humans. I don't know if it specifically said if they're humans or not.
I'm not sure either, actually. People
versus the Daleks, naturally, as most of these always are. And the Daleks bearing down on this ship, and they're like, let's fix this Dalek. This will be a good idea. Let's get a guy in to go and fix him. Mm-hmm. Why they thought that? I can fix him. I don't know. Literally. So naturally, the Doctor gets Clara, and they get shrunk down and go inside this Dalek, which, funny enough, is the name of the episode. Inside this Dalek, yes. And they fix him. Although they don't. I mean, they do fix him. They do, which goes wrong.
That was a very bad thing to do.
And then they go too far. And the Doctor fixes him the way he wanted to fix him, but is mad that that's how he fixed him.
Yeah, it had unintended consequences.
Yes, it certainly did. But what do you think of this episode?
It was good fun. I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just another kind of solid outing. I liked them doing something different with the Daleks. Actually, the opening, seeing them in the middle of a battle that's not against the Doctor, I think is a refreshing change. Yep. And, just to show that they're always constantly out and about. They always have,
They're not just a threat to the Doctor or the human race.
More often than not, they tell us, like, the Daleks are a threat to the universe. Everyone's scared of the Daleks, but never really see why, because they're just always fighting the Doctor and no one else.
Yeah.
So I did like that this is the Doctor accidentally getting involved in a war that the Daleks are part of, rather than, he is the war against the Daleks. Yeah. So that's nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I enjoyed that side of it. And I think the concept of, spoilers for some of my positives, I guess. Yeah. Just the idea, I think, is pretty unique and fun. I don't think it's necessarily wasted, unlike Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, for example, may have done in the past. Capaldi's great. Again, more spoilers for stuff. And we have an introduction to Danny Pink in this one. He's like a major recurring character in Series 8. What a man! What a murdering man!
What a child killing man!
Whoopsie. We'll get into that. But so, kind of revisiting that and seeing where his and Cloud's relationship starts in this episode was nice. Bittersweet, knowing where it all ends up.
It certainly is, yeah.
But still, that's fun. It kind of adds a bit more meat to the bones of the episode, I guess, and prevents it from being, I guess, entirely forgettable as part of Series 8 as a whole. Maybe not in the grand scheme of things. I think it's just, an average kind of fun romp with the Daleks and this new Doctor, getting to know him a bit better. And I think those are definitely the elements that shine.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So speaking of elements that shine, we normally talk about 3 positives each. As I have no idea who's going first anymore, I will kick us off.
Yep.
My first one, surprising perhaps no one, is Peter Capaldi.
Nice. He's my
Yay!
third.
There we go. So I think he's great. I think he does a good job of sort of. I think it's hard to explain sometimes when I think about how I can explain Capaldi in his first 2 seasons at least, because he's not a dick in the typical sense of you don't like him, but he's a good dick. I guess he's very blunt and to the point.
He's not like I'm being an arsehole for the sake of it. He just is an arsehole.
Yeah, and I like it, and I like the way he sort of just sasses everyone and sort of takes control of the situation. I like the humour that he brings. I like the sort of sadness and sort of darkness that he harbours. That you get, that you get a little bit of hints towards in this, with the whole "am I a good man?" question, and the fact that he literally just effectively lets at least one person die without being like, "You're gonna die," or making any conscious attempt to save him.
Yeah, he's like, "This can be useful." So
and whether or not he could have saved him in the situation, he probably couldn't.
I think he did say like he was already dead. The moment
But there's an element of
he could have been a bit more gentle.
Yes, other doctors would have been. Other doctors would have been like,
"I'm so sorry.
Oopsie daisy, I can't do anything. I'm soz," and would be more open and forthcoming about it.
Yeah.
But no, I like this. I like the. I like he gets a lot of lines. Don't be lasagnas. Don't be lasagnas. One of them when they're getting shrunk.
Top player, if you want to say a few words.
Yeah,
it's the biggest laugh of the episode for me.
He's just excellent throughout.
Yeah.
Even like right at the start when he rescues Journey Blue. It's Journey Blue, isn't it?
Journey
That's
Blue,
a stupid name. We'll come on to that. When he rescues her, and he's just the way he's like, "Oh hi," and then he's like, "No, hang on a sec. Can you not be a dick, please? Yeah. I'm the one that's the dick. You need to sort your life out." And yeah, I really appreciate him. I think he's great. It's such a solid second outing for him.
Mm-hmm.
There's never a bad performance of a Doctor.
No,
I don't think. We are in the process of watching Classic Who, so we may stumble upon one.
True.
But at the minute, we're yet to see, a really bad performance from any actor that plays the role. And I think he shines in this as he shines throughout his whole series. And I mean, I think it's safe to say he's probably an underrated Doctor. I think he's getting up there now.
He's had a bit of a renaissance
since there's been 10 years since he's.
It's always the way, isn't it? Eventually, things are appreciated eventually, but sadly not at the time.
Yeah, and this one definitely, I think, is a highlight of his run, and an underrated highlight of that.
Yes.
So yeah, do you want to talk about Capaldi now? Or
I'll talk about Capaldi now. Why not? Because he's best boy. Yeah, I immediately love the contrast between 11 and 12. I think it makes sense to do something like that, and I think Capaldi's, with his Malcolm Tucker past and everything, he's a good choice to do that kind of thing. And, I mean, it's just Malcolm Tucker without the swearing, really, in Series 8, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we love him. He is best boy, and I think he's really funny. I think that's why. I think some people could make those jokes that 12 has, be quite callous and stuff, and it would just be like, "Wow, what a dick!"
You're a dick.
But he somehow makes it kind of charming and funny.
Yeah, the way he pulls it off is just great.
Which is just kudos to him as an actor and performer in general. I really like the dynamic between him and Clara as well. Quite early on, it's a very different vibe to Evan and Clara, obviously. But I think it's still just as fun to watch. Kind of back and forth between them. Just his kind of lack of. He has such big priorities, but a lack of care, which is a really interesting kind of complexity, I guess, to his character.
This is the episode with the "she cares so I don't have to" line, isn't it?
Yes,
it is that one. Yeah, which has become like an iconic line, both of his Doctors and Short as the shows, and I think that does a really good job of summing it up in a good way. Because with that, he clearly goes back and gets Clara, probably because he needs that element of there's a lot of people involved here. I need somebody here that can talk me through it.
Yeah, he is. Maybe he doesn't always want to admit it, but he does always need a companion.
Yeah,
I think Donna said that. You do need someone in Runaway Bride.
Yeah.
So I like that he is still aware of those things. It's not like he's like, I can do this all by myself. Blah, blah. He knows when he's out of his depth. No, that's a whole different arc next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just. He's kind of the scene stealer, really. All eyes on him when he's on screen. Not just because of his nice fancy coat, but because he's a good time pal, my good time boy.
He really is a good time boy.
And yeah, he can be funny, but I like the kind of serious nature to him as well. And the fact that he's acting opposite a giant ass Dalek blob.
CGI, isn't it? It's just there'll be nothing there for him. Maybe a ball
makes it work.
Yeah.
It's so good. Just the intensity of his Doctor when he's just there staring you down the camera when he's supposed to be talking to Rusty. And imagine having to do that and put his whole Capaldi into it, and then he does.
Peter Rusty into it.
Yes.
His whole put.
Stop. So yeah, he's very good, obviously. And yeah, he really hits the ground running with his Doctor, and obviously he goes through. 12 goes through like probably the biggest arc.
He just goes through it.
He just goes through it. Who
yeah.
doesn't?
Yeah.
And
yeah, because he's a visibly different Doctor from this episode to his last episode.
Yeah,
and that's not just because his hair got longer.
No, it's a big part of it, but not just.
No.
And yeah, to see the beginning of that arc and going back and seeing just how brutal and savage he was in the best way at the start of his run is great. And yeah, I like seeing him kind of just have no nonsense, even in a situation regarding the Daleks and stuff. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm just done with these fuckers now. I like that.
Enough.
Yeah, because he's kind of in himself. He's kind of resolved the Time War-ishness of his life now. So he doesn't necessarily need to have that tie to the Daleks and mention that all the time. So that allows him to be quite savage going inside this Dalek.
Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't necessarily go his way at times, but we're seeing the brutality of him. We're also seeing him question if he's a good man or not. And yeah, obviously Capaldi just gets that balance just right, probably because he's been planning his interpretation of this role since he was like 6 years old.
He's a child.
And I think that shows, and he's clearly having a blast doing it. So we have a blast watching.
Definitely. My second positive, and it's a sort of a positive that I didn't expect to come out of this episode, but the relationship between Clara and Danny.
Yeah, Danny's my second.
Yeah, I think they're adorable.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen the series the whole way through, so I just sort of thought, it's not touched on that much, other than maybe like one episode where they like travelled through Danny's timeline, etc. So I just didn't. It just wasn't in my head about how much sort of they give them, and I think that if this isn't set up in this episode, or it's just one scene, their relationship won't work moving forwards. But I just think there's an immediate chemistry between the two. They're both like this awkward, bumbling messes around each other, I think. Danny more so than Clara, but the fact that she's normally someone that's so sort of mindset and she knows what she wants, and the fact that Danny sort of brings out the side of, clumsy, sort of a bit like, oh, I'm not sure. She still has an idea of what she wants, but she's nervous about what it could mean, etc., which is something we haven't really seen from Clara before. And just, Danny as a character is great. I'm blanking on the actor's name.
It is. Oh, I can't believe you've done this.
Whoopsie. He's great. He's also in Trolleyed.
Samuel Anderson.
That's it. Yeah, he's been in Trolleyed.
He's in Trolleyed. He's in Gavin and Stacey.
Yes. He is in Gavin and Stacey. Not in a major role. Oh no, yeah, certainly in the wedding episode.
Yeah.
But yes, I think he's great. He does a good job of showing, again, similar to Capaldi, this sort of light-hearted person that has this sort of darker thing inside of him, not necessarily an evil side of him, but just a secret that he's sort of got, and Capaldi's question of, or the Doctor's question of, am I a good man, can be applied to him as well.
Yeah.
And so, especially considering when we find out why he's crying in the start of the episode, when we find that out, the parallels these two go on, I think is obvious, and you can see that sort of watching back. You can see
it's clear set it up because Clara's going to have to probably make a choice between these.
Yes, and it's forced out. Unfortunately, it's forced out of her hand eventually, and that sets her off on a spiral. But all that is set up here, and I think if this relationship wasn't believable, I don't think you'd believe Clara's arc as well in these two series.
Yeah.
Because they have to hit this right for the end of this series to work, and then her reaction moving forward.
You need to really believe that this was kind of like everything to her.
Yes.
Because when she loses that, she's like, well, I've got nothing to lose now.
Exactly.
And
without these early scenes and without this sort of setup, it's not there. Yeah. He's a nice introduction to the show. I really like him. I like when Doctor Who adds stuff around the companions. Whether that's sort of any family dynamic in Russell's, the brief look at we get for Amy's sort of family in series 5. And sort of this for Clara, and then eventually Clara's family from 2 episodes ago now. I like when they add sort of more depth to the companion. That's not just I'm traveling with the Doctor. They've got a reason to come back. And what's going to happen when that reason goes away?
Good, wholesome things.
Yep. Nothing will go wrong. I'm sure.
Nothing at all.
So yeah, Danny Pink.
Danny Pig. Danny Cool. Anyway, you said it.
That's a Doctor Who confidential behind the scenes montage waiting to happen, isn't it?
God,
Danny Cool, but with Danny Pink.
Yeah, if it
that would have happened. That would have been a thing
for sure. But yeah, I really enjoyed Danny. I think it helps that the other side characters in this episode may not have a positive impact.
Yeah,
which we may get on.
He's
to.
the standout
He's
side
definitely
character.
the
I think
standout,
that's safe
for
to
sure.
say. Yeah.
And again, it's testament, I think, to the chemistry between the actors and the characters, and that you have like a little war and Daleks blowing shit up, and the idea of a good Dalek, which is a really interesting concept. Anyway, I'm still just as excited for like them cutting back to Clara and Danny stuff. And, like, revisiting that. And I'm like, this is
you're not
this
just
is fun and
waiting to
enjoyable
get
stuff.
through it.
Yeah, it's not like I'm not in. I just want the Dalek bit. Like, I enjoy the banter.
I want the home stuff.
Yeah, I like that kind of idea as well. And yeah, he's just instantly very awkward and likable in the best way. I see myself in him. I too am in love with Clara.
Especially when he's like bashing his head on the desk and she's like, I'm here. And he's like, oh, and he just doesn't get up and he's like, oh, okay.
I would just stay there and quit my job and never see her again. And the bit in the classroom where someone asks him like, if he's ever killed anyone.
Have you killed anyone? I'm gonna cry.
Oh shit! So they instantly they're setting up. There is more to
such subtle way. I say subtle ways. It's an obvious way, but sort of better ways of doing it than just saying, "Oh yeah, I feel bad about killing people." The way it's given in the performance more than having to write dialogue for it, which I think works very well.
The actor clearly is giving a lot of depth to Danny.
Putting his whole Danny Pinkusi into this.
That's
even worse. That's even worse.
Possibly say
his whole Dussy into this.
Just stop.
Danny?
No. Samuel Anderson.
Samuel Anderson-y.
Anyway. So yeah, Danny's a lot of, I say, fun. Fun
for now.
He's an enjoyable character in the episode.
Yeah.
And that, you're clearly like, okay, we're going to see more of this guy. So it is quite useful that I think he is a decent character. And I do like the banter between him and Clara. You can clearly see where some of this might be going as well. So that kind of gets you invested to see more of it. I'm like, okay, with the whole doctors disliking soldiers thing in this episode, and you're like, oh, he's not going to like this guy. So you just know, like, okay, this is going to get a bit messy.
We'll certainly find out in an episode that's coming up.
In an episode by a writer. So yes, he's a really cool addition. I think I would do really enjoy seeing where that relationship starts with Danny and Clara in this one. The actor's great. And yeah, I am excited to see kind of more of the in-between with their relationship, like as the series progresses. Yeah. I remember obviously this. I remember how it ends.
Silence.
Mainly because...
No, hide. Listen. That's the one.
That's a big one. And obviously the caretaker. Kill the moon, etc.
Yes. Forest of the Night.
Forest of the Night. He's in Fat Line as well. So, he's in most of the episodes of the series. And I am excited.
Not in next week's though,
I don't think so. So yeah, I am excited to kind of revisit those and see what I feel about how the arc goes, because I remember the end. I remember the start. And we'll see what happens with it. But Danny, I think, is a big standout character in this one. I think he makes a very good first impression.
Yep, I think that's fair enough. My third and final positive is just the concept.
That is my number one.
Yeah, I think it's just, as we've sort of mentioned already, Journey to the Center of the TARDIS is a similar concept to this.
Yeah.
But this is done much better in the fact that you feel more of a threat. There's not you're not really in. There's a real reason why you're going in there. It's not.
There's at least one side character that's good.
Yeah.
In this one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, if we count Danny Pink, then yeah.
I do.
yeah. Okay.
Don't talk about anyone else.
There's nothing involved in the story that's very good. But yeah, I think it's just you always inside a Dalek is always a such thing that we know enough about that you don't already necessarily have a. Because with the TARDIS, everyone's got that kind of, it could be this or this or this. But with the Dalek, it's very more controlled. So there's very little room to go wrong, really.
Yeah.
You can't be like, oh, yeah.
You always think about, like, there's a mutant in there, but you don't think about, like, everything else that must be
No, exactly. Well. And, the use of the sort of weird antibody things that they have is very good. Sort of they showed the fact that the casing's part of the Dalek as well. It's not just the fleshy mutant in there, so the actual casing itself is almost physically the Dalek skin, which I quite like. That's shown when they attack it, when they throw the harpoons or whatever, and it attacks. It's like a nice way of showing that it's not just the mutant inside controlling a machine.
Yeah,
it's more and no, not android, more. What is it? What's the robot human? What's that called? More cyborg than android, I think. I think that's a nice way to sort of put it. Although I still wouldn't go as far as saying, the Daleks are cyborgs. They're just but they're not robots.
No.
which is good. I like that they've sort of in effect made that sort of distinction.
Mm.
And yeah, it's great. They do relatively well with the sets, considering they're effectively mainly corridors and one big room.
Yeah.
But overall, I liked it. It's not really one you could probably do it again, but I think that they've done this one well enough that they wouldn't have to attempt it again.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with what they explore with the concept in this one for sure.
Yeah, and sort of some of the ways they do that as well. You know, when they enter via the eye stalk, and sort of some of the visuals that are in this episode for that as well are very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't really complain. I think it's a solid concept and it's done very well, which is refreshing. Considering Journey. Not Journey Blue.
Not Journey Blue.
No. But then we'll come on to that.
There's always a journey to
there's always
down
a journey.
the mood.
Yeah. But yeah, what do you think about the concept?
Yeah, it's just a great idea, isn't it? I just think it's neat.
Mm-hmm.
And like tying that into like Rusty, just the idea of like a good Dalek, I think is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Recurring character, Rusty as well.
Yeah, certainly is.
We will see him again. Unbelievably, we will see him again. I couldn't believe it when I watched it.
It was either going to be him or the Clockwork guy they were going to bring back for the last one.
Yeah.
And they thought, the
Dalek's
Dalek probably
busy.
works. Yeah, that's what it
Okay, we'll get Nick Briggs back. He's always here. He's always in the cupboard.
He's always hanging around the set. He's always outside the door asking for a part.
Yes, you can voice this monster as well, Nick. Go on then. Get in there, you rascal. But yeah, it's just a really cool idea. I think it's explored really well. It allows for some cool visuals. A deeper exploration, I guess, of the Doctor and the Daleks' relationship. How, they've talked, like in some of the Daleks, Oswin was kind of saying the Daleks grow stronger because they fear the Doctor. And in this one, you kind of really do see that. Because what the Doctor's solution for fixing this Dalek and showing him beauty, showing him the star and stuff. It's like, wow, yeah, you really hate us. That's great. I'm going to hate the Daleks too, because
if you hate
that's
them,
amazing.
I must have to hate them.
Yeah. So, that kind of very twisted Batman Joker, they can't exist without the other kind of deal with them, which is cool. And yeah, just thinking about like what makes a Dalek tick, it probably produced a book or two when they kind of broke down the inside of the Dalek.
There is. I
useful.
have got a book somewhere in my bedroom that's about just Daleks, and it does like break them down into whatever. And there was
manuals and stuff.
From like years ago, they had the big one where you turn it sideways and it would be like a cut cut apart, so you'd see inside and whatever. So
who could forget?
The ideas were there, but I think this fully forms it.
Yeah, it's definitely it feels fully explored, and they kind of revisit the idea of the end of the Doctor would be a good Dalek as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always kind of been a good Dalek out there in the universe, even before now, because the Doctor has been about doing his nasty business. So I like that whole idea, and just to see Rusty turn on the Daleks at the end, it does feel like a nice, satisfying solution. Even they fixed the problem, but they also didn't, and all the complexities that kind of go with that. So it's just a really cool idea to kind of go inside the Dalek like that. I think it's like the perfect enemy to do it with as well. I don't think it would be as interesting to like go inside a Cyberman or go inside a Sontaran. Probably be quite gross.
Yeah.
The iconic villain of Doctor Who to kind of literally see what makes them tick, I thought was a really interesting concept, and the episode actually explores it well, which is great.
Yeah, it's always good. Have you got any additional positives?
I do. I've already talked about like the Dalek having battles outside of the Doctor. I thought some of the visuals are really cool in it.
Yeah,
obviously.
the direction was really nice.
I love the sequence where they climb through like the blue
the ice stalk.
And everything.
Yeah,
that's
and,
really fun.
and the way sort of the Daleks attack as well, I think is shot really well. Both with the saucer
well
coming through the asteroids and the Daleks just breaking through, and the way they blow up.
They go full like action movie.
All the gross like goo that's coming out of some of the Daleks when they blow up is really well done as well.
Daleks died in this, which is lovely. And then there was a line the Doctor says as well. He's like, nobody guards the dead. Kind of foreshadowing there a bit of what Missy's plan's all about. Yeah, who obviously also pops up in this episode when Gretchen dies.
Got written that down.
So I like that. Maybe it's a Time Lord thing that they can think of this key weakness of the human race, because it kind of leads into what Missy and the Cybermen do in the finale. Yeah. So I like how that is all kind of coming together as well, as like setting up Doctor thinking, is he a good man or not? So I like that they're sowing the seeds for the longer arc while also just having a cool concept fully explored in its own right. Yeah. I just think it's neat.
No, fair enough. I did really like the humour in this as well. I've got a few lines written down. You're not a young woman anymore, which I think was hilarious. And then You're Built Like a Man as
That
well.
was the one I was just going to mention.
You know, there's some really good ones.
Don't worry, You're Built Like a Man.
And I think it's the dynamic between the two of them. You know, the humor and the dynamic between Clara and the Doctor. It works well. I think in this series where he's still like testing each other.
Yeah.
See how it goes after Danny Pink and see if that dynamic changes slightly. I think it will because she is more on a level with him then, so it's more
becomes quite symbiotic.
Yeah, it's less taking the piss, I think, in the next series.
Yeah, they just become equals, don't they?
Yeah.
By the end of this, yeah.
So there's less of this then, but I think I'm enjoying it while it's there because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we must now talk of the negatives. First one, the side characters, excluding Danny Pink.
That is mine as well. Yes. They're just shit.
They're just so generic, I think.
Yeah.
Journey Blue's got something about her, but I don't think the performance is the best from the actress. Unfortunately,
I can see what they're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I just think she's quite boring anyway. And
Yeah.
I know she's fighting in a war and stuff, and her brother
Yeah.
just died, but I'm like, shut up about it.
But then-
which sounds horrible.
Yeah,
but
but
then
then
she's like, take me with you. At the end.
yeah,
Like, you spent the whole episode hating this man.
Yeah.
He's not been nice to you
Yeah.
once. Why
Why
are
do
you
you
like,
wanna go?
I want to come
Yeah,
with you and
yeah.
see the world? And I'm like, that makes no sense
Yeah.
for the character to do that at all.
yeah. And even so, like her brother did just die, but she's over that very quickly as well. She's sort of there's not really any emotion on there other than
She's just
mild annoyance.
Yeah,
I
she's
guess
just back and forth all the time on like what she wants to do and how she wants to act. And I don't think there's ever really a good enough reason for why she gets back and forth that much.
No, and I mean, she's the standout side character, I guess. Again, if we exclude Danny Pink from this conversation, obviously.
Yeah, in terms of the actual Dalek plot, she's
yes,
like the main side.
yeah, because the other guy, the uncle guy, the main leader guy, he's not great,
I'm sorry.
both in terms of acting and
I'm
his
grateful.
role anyway. Yeah. And then the other two. Are the two die? There are two others, aren't there? Two other soldiers.
Yes, there's
die?
the guy from Crown Prince and Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and
who
then
dies.
the woman.
And then Gretchen.
The woman that dies.
Who goes and sees
Who
me.
again? I think they're just
literally there to die.
disposable, aren't they? Yeah, they're the
They are
kind
there
of
to
follow.
die.
They're the red shirts of
Yeah.
the episode. And I mean, if we want to also delve into Danny Pink's sort of side of things, the receptionist I think is a bit naff as well. Where she's like, I bet you are. You know, I was like, shut up. And then
That literally goes nowhere. The whole lady kid thing is so weird.
yeah, and then the child jump scare as well. What's
God,
the face?
Courtney.
Courtney in the window. Yeah, that's
Go on,
unnecessary.
Do it.
We'll see how that goes for the rest of the season with her. But
God, they really try to make Courtney happen. So.
yeah, it's not great. I think in terms of side characters, the Dalek is the best one.
Yeah, good old Rusty. Yeah.
If we're classing him as a side character, I just think that the others are just performances aren't great. They were clearly there and told that you're just soldiers, do that role, and they didn't really think too much harder about it. I don't think, which is a shame. But because we do have, we've had this before where we've had different armies fight or a human army fight. We had it with the Doctor's daughter, and I'd say other than General Cobb, the other side characters in that are pretty good. Even the Hath.
The Hath are great.
He has more emotion, I think, than most of the soldiers in this, and we don't know what he's saying. No.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe it's I don't know if it's a writing thing or if it was just a performance thing or a bit both.
I feel like it's probably a bit of both. To be honest.
Yeah, they're not given like loads to do, but at the same time, they don't do well with what they've got.
Yeah,
I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it's just very, very bland, and that kind of is a shame, especially when they're fighting the Daleks. You think they would give something to it.
Yeah,
they don't. So I guess that's that, isn't it? It is a shame. So you do think like this episode could be like really, really something if the side characters were at the same level as everyone else.
Well, when there's a target novelisation, we find out they're all serial killers. Then maybe
they probably are.
They probably are.
Fighting them all.
Yeah, at the very least, serial Dalek killers.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, apparently not because they're really shit at killing
pretty
Daleks.
bad against the Daleks, and they're all just. Yeah, I mean, actually, I was about to say.
Yeah.
That's my next negative. So
well,
I won't go into that. Just
yeah. But yeah, I think I'll hit that one now. Then second negative is just they just don't think things through.
Yeah, mine is what did they think would happen?
yeah. So not only do they get a guy to go into the Dalek to fix it, I'm like, okay, sure. I don't know what you expected there, but they don't even guard it that well.
No.
They've just got like flimsy chains that it can easily break out of. Like if you're gonna do that, lock the room to start with. Make sure that it just can't get out no matter what. Put more guards on it.
Like, we've got an injured Dalek, we don't have to try, but their literal plan is to make this Dalek better.
Yeah.
They don't think that far ahead.
So, I mean, I might have missed it, but there needs to be a line in there that's like, oh, this Dalek's got some information that we want, but we can't get to it while it's in the situation. We need to go in and fix it. But I don't know if they necessarily say anything like that.
I don't think they do.
I might have missed some context for that, but either way, it's not explicitly stated. They could have had a MacGuffin that's just, we need to go and do this, and they could have had that running throughout the episode, but they don't. And then, surprise, surprise, the Doctor fixes it, which means it's going to kill everyone, and it tells the other Daleks to come in, and they just can't kill him.
No,
they just don't kill him. Literally, they're just. I'm like, how are you surviving this war if this is how you're fighting? No wonder you're one ship. You know, is this a war or is this literally it? You can't tell because you'd think if they'd been like the Dalek, like the Sidemen in Nightmare and Silver, where they got the specific gun to fight them, you'd think they'd have developed something to fight these Daleks, but apparently not. So
they had a good Dalek.
It's good that the other Dalek.
We could use this. They
just
completely mismanage it.
Even they're only saved because the Doctor eventually goes too far with that Dalek and turns it, and it kills the other Daleks. But yeah, it's just not. They just don't think it through, and maybe that's just because they just wanted to get into the Dalek. We don't really care about how we get there. Well, I mean, like the writers and they wanted the story to just be in the Dalek, but they're like, don't care how we get in there.
Yeah,
just make sure we're in there somehow. And they didn't give it too much thought.
Yeah, I think probably to make this story fill the 45 minutes and not get bogged down in anything else, they had to just sacrifice all the side characters really. Not give them
both figuratively and literally.
Yes, in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, but it does make them just come across as unbelievably stupid.
Yes, yeah, it does. Okay, so go on to my third final negative. God. I think this episode meandered a little bit.
Yeah.
I think sort of the main culprit of this is where they go down and they fix the Dalek, and then they go back up and they go, oh, actually, we could do this, and then they go down again. I don't know whether this is just the set design's not worked, so it looks like they're going back on themselves, or if they've just they are going back on themselves, but it very much feels like they go and do something, then they go back, and then they go do it again, and they come back, and it's just sort of like, you can trim this down slightly so that it's a bit quicker. You could trim down, the amount of interaction they have with the outside. If you trim down one of the characters, you don't necessarily need Gretchen there to sacrifice herself.
They could have just had that guy.
Could have been Journey Blue. She could have sacrificed herself, which might have added a bit more depth to her character. If she was like, I'm doing this so I saved my uncle, etc. Blah blah blah. I don't know, something like that. But they don't really explore that dynamic enough for you to even feel if she chose to do that.
No,
that would be a thing. And I think it's just to some extent it's fine, but I just think that they just seem to go around in a circle and like they run out of a set and they're like, we don't have enough set to make another Dalek room. Let's just have it be the same or similar room where there's big eye or big screen or something. So maybe there's I can't even say there's probably a budget limitation on this because it's probably an expensive episode to do this one, but it very much feels like the money was spent elsewhere and not on additional Dalek set designs, because I don't think that they necessarily go up and down. It might just be that they go somewhere else, but it's not. You can't tell that by watching the episode, I don't think. But what's your third negative?
I thought some elements were a bit kind of forced. I do remember talking about this. I don't know if we said we did record this once before and it went horribly wrong.
It did,
which is why it took so long for us to kind of get back to it.
We just didn't want to.
We should have literally done this over a month ago.
Yeah, really. Sorry, everyone.
Then
but
there was news and life.
All sorts happened. It's almost like new Doctor Who's coming out. So.
God, it is. Oh my God, you're right. But yeah, I just think the "Am I a good man?" thing. I like it and it's a good arc, but I think it would have made a lot more sense if that had been the final scene of the episode.
Yeah.
Because
why is he contemplating it now?
Yeah, when you literally had the perfect setup of Rusty being like, "You are a good Dalek," and off he goes, and like what the Doctor's influence has done has made this Dalek hate other Daleks, which is an insane achievement, really. And that would get him thinking like, "How have I managed to do that? I'm clearly a terrible, terrible. I was going to say human being, terrible person, half human being. If you believe,
if you believe certain things.
And it's just so bizarre to me that that's just not the final scene. I think it would have more of an impact if it were. Because that's a nice moment between the Doctor and Clara, but for some reason it happens right at the start, and there hasn't really been a real trigger for him to start thinking that way.
Mhm.
And for like his main kind of personal journey for the series to just start because it was time to start it, rather than when they had a perfect kind of reason for it right there.
Yeah.
Was a bit weird. So there was...
Because it would have made more sense if they did it at the end of the first episode where he may have perhaps killed that person.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Clockwork guy, but they kind of gloss over it there for the Matt Smith stuff, for the bridging the gap stuff at the end of that episode. So it feels like they have to do this now. So like, how that ended then. This is how he's feeling, by the way. But even so, he's still then gone and rescued someone. And I don't think that is enough for him to then start thinking it. Because he's rescued someone, met all the people for the Dalek, and then gone and got Clara. So it's not even like this is immediately after and he's still thinking it. He's had time, and you don't really get the idea that he's thinking that in the first scene.
Yeah.
So it is a bit out of the blue.
Yeah.
A bit out of the journey blue.
Hey. I'm pretty sure I made that joke last time.
Probably.
We made it again now, so you get to enjoy it all over
Yay!
again. I've also put soldiers as a forced element. Can't remember why. I won't lie, because I wrote these a month ago, and I can't remember why.
Maybe just because you don't necessarily... Oh, it's the whole thing. You just don't need them.
You probably don't need it. Yeah, that's probably true. And I think they do mention, I might hammer a point home that she's a soldier again and again, just so they can do the ending point. I know that, again, that's a big thing with the series. Like, the foretold in Mummy on the Orient Express is a soldier, and then the whole Danny thing. I know what they're doing with it, but at this point, it's like, okay, we get it. We get it. They're
the
soldiers.
Doctor doesn't kill.
Yeah,
you know?
The Doctor doesn't kill. He doesn't like soldiers. We get it. I never would.
Killing spider children.
Yeah, as you do. So I think there's just a few things out there that I think it probably bothers me more because there was such an easy fix for it. Like just put that scene at the end.
Yeah.
Even just in the editing room, you could have swapped some scenes around and put that at the end if you wanted to. But oh well, never mind. I think they explore the concept really well and everything, and I think the ending could have been, pretty impactful if that scene had been at the end. But sadly, it wasn't.
No, fair enough. I've got no additional negatives, however, for you.
I don't have them.
Nice. In which case, we now move on to the fun facts for the episode.
Oh my god!
Yay!
It's been so long since I've read fun facts.
Woohoo.
I've read these ones, and there aren't that many, so enjoy. It's a nice break for me. Okay, while not stated in the episode, the script noted the story took place in the 31st century.
So they are human, then they're just future humans.
I guess so. Sure. Let's say yes. Footage of a guard being exterminated in Dalek and the attack on the Valiant in the Stolen Earth is used when Rusty regains some memories, and the destruction of the Daleks and the Crucible in Journey's End is used when Rusty looks into the Doctor's mind.
Love that.
Whoopsie. This is the first episode since The Waters of Mars to have 2 credited writers, both of them which feature Phil Ford being one of them. So,
you just can't write. God.
I don't think that's what they're saying.
You need somebody coming in and edit his stuff.
Let's back away from that. The Doctor talks about the Daleks feeding on their victims for protein. Davros was previously seen converting bodies into a synthetic protein food source in Revelation of the Daleks. Which is fucking gross.
So grim.
The Doctor had previously mentioned his dislike for soldiers in Doctor Who and the Silurians, the third Doctor story, and Sontaran Stratagem Slash the Poison Sky in Series 4. Classic. Rusty mingles the idea of beauty and hatred, such as the Dalek Prime Minister did in Asylum of the Daleks. So those bloody Daleks. Danny Pink retiring from the army and going on to teach maths mirrors what the Brigadier was shown to do in 5th Doctor story Mordrin Undead. Oh. And we nice. See the Brigadier at the end of the series as a Cyberman, just like Danny becomes. All the parallels are there. Hooray!
We certainly do see the Brigadier. It's definitely him.
We definitely do.
We know it because he saluted.
Yeah, Kate somehow knew. According to the book Dalek, the astounding untold history of the greatest enemies of the universe, which is far too long for the book title,
yeah, it really is.
The Daleks launched the war seen in this story immediately after the events of 3rd Doctor story, Death to the Daleks. Oh. So, there you go, some good old classic series links. Clara's final response to the Doctor's question of "Am I a good man?" invokes the philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, who Clara is shown to be a fan of and teaches her class about at the start of the Day of the Doctor. So that's nice. Stephen Moffat came up with the concept of this episode when discussing potential ideas for a Doctor Who video game, but they just decided that was too good, so they stole it for an episode. Sorry. So, I mean, yeah, fair enough. And the scene where Gretchen appears before Missy was, much like Missy's appearance in Deep Breath, directed by an uncredited Rachel Talalay. Both scenes were filmed on the 23rd of May, 2014. Wow. Nearly 10 years ago.
Almost 10 years.
In 6 months.
Amazing.
How vile. But that's time, baby.
Lovely stuff.
And it's also time to finish my fun facts, because that's all of them.
Lovely. So one thing left to do for this episode. Out of 10, what are you rating it?
I'm going for 7. I think.
Nice. I think I'm going for an 8
Okay.
because this episode 8.
Rusty 8.
Rusty really ate. Did he? He did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think it's a fun time. It's a good episode. It's I think better than Deep Breath for me.
Yeah, I prefer Deep Breath personally.
I think Deep Breath is just too long.
Yeah,
that's the main issue for me for Deep Breath. I think, but let's see if we prefer it to next week's though, which is Robot
of Sherwood.
Robot of Sherwood.
Because then
just
the pun
to put
works.
the singular robot. Yeah. It's pretty much what you might think. It's
Robin Hood
robots and Robin Hood.
Yeah.
And Ben Miller.
Ben Miller.
As well. Ben Miller is in it. And
God,
no decapitations.
No.
They're not in this. Okay. We'll have some fun facts about that. I'm sure next week.
Fun.
But yes, it's been a long while since I've seen this episode.
Me too.
I'm intrigued. I remember not necessarily liking it, maybe because it was too silly, especially for Capaldi, who has had now 2 very serious episodes.
I do remember this was written for Matt Smith.
Yes, so it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. I'm always willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. It might turn out to be the best episode I've ever seen now.
Surprise.
You know, we've had that, or it might turn out to be worse than we both remembered it being.
42.
But what do you remember of Robot of Sherwood, and what are you sort of hoping?
I remember being hyped as fuck because I love the Robin Hood story.
Uh-huh.
I've loved them ever since I was a kid and I read the book at infant school.
Mm-hmm.
So when this was something I always wanted them to do, I always wanted to do Shakespeare and Robin Hood. You obviously got Shakespeare.
So you've got 2 okay episodes.
Got 2 alright episodes from a transphobe and Mark Gatiss, who, as far as we are aware, is fun.
For now.
Yes. So yeah, I was very, very excited when they announced they were doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do remember enjoying it. It is, as far as Robin Hood elements go, I think it is kind of basic, bare bones. They do the Golden Arrow stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Marion's in there a bit. Obviously the show for Nottingham, all that jazz.
Yeah.
And you know, Robin Hood fights a witch, and they could have done that, but they chose not to. I guess because we already had witches in Shakespeare. There's simply nothing else they can do.
How dare they just have the Carronats return and be like, we're attacking somebody else now.
Yes.
How dare they reuse monsters? God, they've never done that before.
This was the Dalek's first appearance.
Yeah,
famously.
God.
But
and
yeah,
the bookwork droids.
Yeah, I do remember being like, I wish they did a bit more in that side of things. But you know, I still had fun with the episode. I don't know if I still will. We'll find out. It was unfortunately kind of hit with some real world stuff at the time, which I think would have made it more impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just, you know, that's not their fault. It's just unfortunate, but it does impact the final thing we watch. Sadly, I do enjoy the Doctor and Robin's relationship, and the kind of back and forth between them. I think that does provide some good stuff. And yeah, it definitely is kind of a run of the mill, kind of forgettable adventure. But hopefully, it will at least be a good time before the depression of Listen comes afterwards. So yeah, I am looking forward to revisiting it. But you know, I think a lot of that is kind of Robin Hood bias. So we'll see how that kind of fares. Because I've recently reread The Adventures of Robin Hood, so I'm going to be scrutinising the fuck out of this episode. And it's probably going to be quite bad in comparison.
Yeah,
but there you go. It is what it is. I am excited to watch it though.
Lovely. And they've also recently done a 4th Doctor Robin Hood story. It's a book, I think, it's come out. I think that's just called. It might just be called Adventures of Robin Hood or something like that.
Maybe.
I can't remember.
Every Doctor's probably meant Robin Hood at this point.
Yeah, so it's
Patrick Troughton played Robin Hood, and there's a reference to that in this
there
episode.
You go.
So
there really
stay
is.
tuned.
But yes, we will see how that goes. Hopefully, that'll be next week. But once again, we are hurtling towards the 60th. It is this month. It is 2 weeks from today. Day of recording. I imagine we'll be hitting those episodes soon, which might slow down these. It's not as if these have been going
as if we haven't done like 5 weeks.
But we know how busy it is. We're both pretty busy, so we'll just try and fit them in where we can. And when we have technical issues like we did with this one originally, it does hamper sort of what we can do. But it is what it is. We'll press on, and either way, we'll hopefully get some more videos out to you soon. But until then, bye.
Bye.